A very wonderful woman called Dr. Sophie Chandoka by Meghan Markle. Racism, harassment, bullying, and cover-up scandal gets worse by the hour. Prince Harry has been cast aside by one of his former allies and friends.
Breaking right now, and you won't believe it until you see the footage yourself. Meghan Markle's carefully crafted image has finally collided head-on with reality, and the fallout is brutal. And if you thought you'd seen every scandal, every leaked memo, every whispered accusation, think again, because what just came to light isn't just about one bad day or an awkward moment on stage. It's about a pattern, a history, and a moment so shocking that Prince Harry himself reportedly snapped. Today, we're unpacking the viral footage, the resignations, the whispered cover-ups, and the accusations that have set fire to the Sussex brand. So grab a seat, because this is the story that could finally tear down the fairy tale facade. It all started quietly enough. A charity event meant to celebrate years of good work in Africa. Prince Harry was beaming, Meghan appeared calm, and the cameras were rolling. But behind the smiles, something was brewing, and it would only take one misstep for the entire illusion to shatter. That misstep came when Meghan was caught on tape dismissing the accomplished Dr. Sophie Chandoka. Now, Dr. Sophie isn't some random critic. She's a respected corporate finance lawyer, a biotech founder, and a senior figure at one of the world's biggest tech companies. She's not the sort of woman who's easily rattled, nor is she a stranger to high-stakes boardrooms and the egos that come with them. But what she allegedly faced that day was something she later described as contemptuous and humiliating. The footage itself is only a few seconds long, but those seconds have turned into the most damning piece of evidence against Meghan yet. Witnesses say Meghan cut Sophie off mid-sentence, rolled her eyes, and uttered the now infamous words, "Let's not waste time." Those 4 words set off a chain reaction that no one, not even Harry, was prepared for. Staff at the event described the atmosphere as electric with tension. One longtime charity worker reportedly whispered that it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. And in that moment, the carefully managed persona of Meghan Markle, the benevolent Duchess, the champion of progress, crumbled into something much less flattering. But that was just the tip of the iceberg, because while Meghan was brushing off the head of the charity in front of stunned staffers, Harry was watching. And what happened next shocked even those closest to him. According to insiders, Harry waited until the cameras were turned away and pulled Meghan aside. Witnesses say his face was red, his jaw clenched. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't the doting husband eager to smooth things over. No, he was livid. And when she tried to brush it off, he allegedly told her she was making them look like fools. Moments later, he walked out of the event entirely, refusing to pose for the customary photos with donors. For those who'd known Harry since he was a teenager, it was a moment they'd never imagined seeing. The prince who gave up everything for love finally reaching his breaking point. And while Harry was seething, Meghan's behavior was only fanning the flames. Because when the charity board learned about the incident, it didn't stay behind closed doors. Word spread, first among staff, then to journalists. And that's when Harry's old friend, Alex Reina, stepped into the fray. Now, Alex isn't some random commentator. He's the same man who trekked to the North Pole with Harry back in 2012. He'd been there through Harry's wild years, his heartbreak, and eventually, his transformation into the prince determined to save the world. But this time, Alex wasn't defending him. Speaking to the Daily Mail, Alex described Harry as heartbroken and flabbergasted by how the charity he founded had become a battleground for petty grudges. He claimed the entire mess felt like a hostile takeover, with Dr. Sophie intent on humiliating Harry and Meghan in public. But here's where things took an even stranger turn, because almost as soon as Alex's words hit the headlines, another voice spoke up. And this time, it was someone the Sussexes had once counted as an ally. Katie Andrews, the outspoken academic who appeared in Harry and Meghan's Netflix special, went on national TV to deliver what might be the most scathing takedown yet. He didn't just criticize Harry's charity work. He called Harry a living symbol of colonial arrogance, a pampered aristocrat playing savior on the African continent while treating the very people he claimed to uplift with disdain. And though he acknowledged the royal family's legacy of racism, he also made it clear that Harry was no exception. It was the kind of criticism that would have once made headlines for weeks. But for Harry and Meghan, it was just one more log on a fire they could no longer control. Because while the public argued over whether the couple were hypocrites or simply misunderstood, the real story was happening behind closed doors. According to leaked documents and insider accounts, this wasn't the first time Meghan's behavior had come under scrutiny. Far from it. Multiple former staffers had already described her as a dictator duchess, prone to sudden outbursts and icy dismissals. From Buckingham Palace to the Archewell Foundation, the whispers were always the same. That behind the PR machine was someone who saw staff as disposable and expected unwavering loyalty without question. But this time was different. This time, the complaints weren't coming from anonymous palace aides. They were coming from the very woman Harry had once called the future of the charity, Dr. Sophie Chandoka. And Sophie wasn't backing down. In an extraordinary interview, she claimed Meghan's behavior went beyond rudeness. She described it as harassment, belittling, and calculated humiliation. She accused Harry himself of intervening to protect Meghan from the consequences and suggested the charity's board had closed ranks to bury the incident. And she wasn't alone in that accusation. Several board members had resigned in protest, leaving only Dr. Sophie's executive team standing. For Harry, the optics were catastrophic. The boy who once vowed to finish his mother's humanitarian legacy was now being accused of covering up bullying. Even as he tried to distance himself from the most explosive claims, his name was in every headline. And the worst part? The scandal was unfolding just as their American empire was teetering. Deals were collapsing. Public goodwill was evaporating. And as one royal biographer put it bluntly, every time Meghan's name is in the press, it's never for the reason she wants. But if you thought this was just about a single incident, think again. Because the list of institutions Harry has pressured to issue statements defending Meghan reads like a greatest hits of damage control. The NYPD, Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, the Invictus Games, even the Santa Barbara Police. Again and again, insiders describe the same pattern. Harry demanding public support for his wife, no matter the cost. And each time, more allies walked away. Each time, the circle around them grew smaller. What makes this particular scandal so remarkable isn't just the substance of the accusations, it's the timing. With the Charity Commission launching a formal inquiry, the stakes are higher than ever. If investigators find evidence that Meghan's conduct breached ethical standards, or that Harry interfered to suppress complaints, the consequences could be unprecedented. Loss of funding, criminal liability for board members, and the final destruction of whatever credibility the Sussexes have left. For longtime royal watchers, it's hard not to see the irony. After all, it was Meghan and Harry who first accused the royal family of racism and cruelty. They cast themselves as victims of an outdated institution unwilling to change. But now, as even their closest allies publicly walk away, it seems the same accusations, bullying, arrogance, manipulation, are coming for them. And Harry, once the Golden Prince, is left alone in the wreckage of his own making. Yet even in the face of growing evidence, there are those who insist Meghan is misunderstood, that the pressure of global fame, combined with relentless scrutiny, would make anyone defensive, that it's easy to judge her without understanding the toll of constant judgment. But for every voice defending her, there are three more asking the same question. If this many people have the same story, how long can you keep blaming everyone else? Perhaps the most surreal moment came when Dr. Sophie used a term no one expected, misogynoir, the specific prejudice faced by black women. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Meghan had once positioned herself as a symbol of representation and progress. Now that same language was being turned against her. The woman who built her brand on calling out bias was being accused of perpetuating it. And for Harry, watching this unfold must feel like a nightmare. A lifetime spent trying to build something good, undone by a moment of arrogance he couldn't control. And so here we are, watching as the Sussex empire teeters on the brink. Watching as the same headlines they once weaponized return to haunt them. For Harry, this charity was supposed to be his redemption, a living monument to everything he claimed to believe. But in the end, it became the stage where Meghan's true colors were exposed, and where he lost control of the narrative once and for all. So what happens next? Will the Charity Commission's investigation finally bring answers? Will Harry cut ties with the woman who has defined and perhaps destroyed his second act? Or will this all fade into the background like so many scandals before it? For now, the only thing certain is that the public is no longer willing to look away. And as more insiders come forward, the story of the Sussexes will only grow darker, more complicated, and harder to spin. But if there's one lesson in all of this, it's that the truth has a way of coming out, no matter how many times you try to bury it. And for Harry and Meghan, that truth is no longer just inconvenient, it's potentially devastating. What do you think? Is this the moment the Sussexes finally face consequences? Or will they find a way yet again to survive the scandal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button if you're tired of the hypocrisy. And don't forget to subscribe, because this story is far from over. And if you think this is all just another royal squabble that will disappear by next week, think again, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. This is unfolding at the exact moment the Sussexes are seeing their brand wither on every front. It's almost eerie how quickly the dominoes have fallen. Just a year ago, Harry and Meghan were signing multi-million-dollar deals, hosting podcasts, and dropping Netflix specials that topped the charts. They were the couple who could do no wrong, at least in the eyes of their loyal supporters. But the truth behind the scenes was far less glamorous. Multiple insiders say the cracks started showing long before this charity blow-up. When Spotify quietly ended their contract, the rumor mill went into overdrive. Executives who had worked directly with Meghan described her as impossible to please. One high-level producer, who insisted on anonymity, said the demands from Meghan's team were endless, contradictory, and often downright bizarre. That same chaos now appears to have seeped into every project the couple touches, from their stalled Netflix content to the doomed Archetypes podcast. What's different about the charity scandal is that it stripped away all the glossy PR language. There were no curated social media posts to deflect attention, no sympathetic journalists to spin a narrative of persecution. For the first time, the footage and the accusations spoke for themselves, and the impact was immediate. Donations to the charity reportedly dipped in the weeks after the story broke. Several longtime patrons withdrew their support altogether, citing a lack of confidence in the organization's leadership. Even more damning, some of those patrons were friends of Harry's late mother, people who had stood by him since he was a boy. One insider with close ties to the charity's board described a chilling scene after the event. Harry had left early, his mood somewhere between rage and resignation. Meghan, meanwhile, appeared unfazed. She didn't look upset, the source said. It was as if she'd already decided none of it mattered. That small detail, her cold detachment, only fueled speculation that Meghan believes she's untouchable, no matter how many scandals erupt around her. The irony here is almost Shakespearean. Harry, the rebel prince who fled Britain in search of freedom and authenticity, is now accused of creating the same oppressive culture he once denounced. Critics have called it karma. Others see it as proof that when power and ego collide, even the most earnest intentions can rot from the inside out. And whether you sympathize with them or not, there's no denying the damage is real. Look closer, and you'll see this was never about a single charity event. This was about control, about who gets to shape the story. For years, Harry and Meghan have insisted they were silenced by the palace, forced to endure racism and cruelty without a voice. Yet now, faced with an independent investigation, they've done everything possible to keep critics quiet. From issuing legal threats to privately pressuring board members, the tactics feel eerily familiar to those who remember the Sussexes' royal exit. Back then, it was Buckingham Palace accused of burying the truth. Now, the same allegations are aimed squarely at Harry and Meghan. For some observers, this pattern is the most disturbing part, the sense that nothing has changed, that behind every smiling photo op is a trail of hurt feelings, burned bridges, and hushed-up grievances. And in the court of public opinion, even former fans are starting to ask whether the Sussexes have simply replaced one gilded cage with another. Only this time, they're the ones holding the keys. But perhaps the most devastating fallout has been personal. Multiple reports say Harry has become increasingly isolated, with fewer and fewer friends willing to defend him publicly. One former army comrade described their last conversation as awkward and sad, with Harry sounding more like a man trying to convince himself he'd made the right choices than someone living his truth. Another longtime friend from Eton was more blunt. He used to be the most loyal, genuine person you'd ever meet. Now it's all about Meghan, and everyone else is disposable. It's a harsh assessment, but one echoed again and again in the wake of this scandal. Even those who still care about Harry privately admit they can't recognize the person he's become. The man who once spent weeks trekking across Africa for charity work, building schools and raising awareness about HIV, now seems trapped in a cycle of defensive statements and scorched earth tactics. And if the Charity Commission's investigation confirms any part of the whistleblower's claims, Harry won't be able to blame palace politics or tabloid spin. He'll have to own the consequences himself.